LHC is a leading not-for-profit public sector purchasing consortium that provides best value procurement solutions for the construction, refurbishment and maintenance of social housing, schools and other public sector buildings. So, John, we're looking forward to what you've got to say on new housing delivery in the South West. Thank you. Where are you, John?
Here, John.
Oh, God.
Well, good afternoon. I'm going to talk, I'm going to start off this session by talking about how we collectively can change the delivery of new housing in the South West. Now, I'm going to pick up on some themes that you've seen already today, and there's no apologies for that. I think what you've seen today, I think there's a lot of common themes coming through, and I picked those up in my presentation. But more importantly, what I want to talk to you about is the action that's happening with regard to change, and stuff that is actually physically happening now and delivering or implementing new models of delivery in the South West with social landlords. And when I talk about clients in the South West, I'm talking about social landlords. That's what LHC does. LHC represents social landlords throughout the whole of the country. So it's about delivering change in new housing in the South West. And what you've seen already, what you've heard already today, is that to change what we do in the South West requires strong leadership. And I picked up a description here. I'm not sure. Can you read that at the back, the description? I picked up a description for leadership, which is, it's okay. It makes sense. It's not a remarkable description, but I don't think anybody would have any particular qualms about it. There's two parts to this description of leadership. There's a second part because the description relates to leadership in construction. And again, the second part, I don't think anybody would have any questions about that. What we're saying is for leadership in construction industry, it affects all of us. Again, nothing really super dynamic about that, nothing really remarkable about that as a description of leadership. What I think is remarkable about that description of leadership is that it comes from the report that you've already heard about today. That description is 20 years old. The Rethinking Construction report from Sir John Egan, 20 years old this year. And John Egan was talking about leadership in construction, as you've heard. Now, what I like about, I was around and heavily involved in the industry when Rethinking Construction came out. What I liked about Rethinking Construction, it's a 39-page document. There's loads of documents about leadership in construction. It's just got one summary. Lots of reports that you'll read have loads and loads of summaries. And what the task force was able to do is to say, we've done all of this analysis, there's one summary. And the important thing for that in that summary, for us as an industry, is that the task force wasn't asking us as an industry to do things better. They were asking us to do things differently, to completely rethink construction. And I don't know whether you can see at the bottom two statements there. This was 1998. And Sir John Egan, many of you know the report. Sir John Egan was chair of JAGU, and he was asked to look at trying to see how the construction industry could replicate the car industry in terms of its service delivery. And the task force said within 5 years, and this was in 1998, within 5 years our industry should be much more like the car industry and deliver first-class manufacturing, first-class service. So you can make your own mind. You can make your own minds up. 20 years later, whether we've actually hit that aspiration. Clearly we haven't. And I think what's interesting today, we talk about Mark Farmer and constructing excellence. I'll come back to in a second. The Modernise or Die report by Mark Farmer is the modern day version of rethinking construction. You've heard about this morning about Latham, you've heard about Egan. It's now about Farmer, Modernise or Die. And what he's picking up is some of the key elements that have come out from Latham and come out of Egan, which are still not implemented, and trying to implement that now, 20 years after Egan. And I have to say, I think it's working. I think we're at the tipping point now. I think with the Modernise or Die report, we are starting to see some traction, and we are starting to see some change. Now, it's down to leadership, and I think it was interesting looking at Emma's presentation this morning about leadership and why there's some difficulties in the construction industry about concept of leadership. And I think the problem we've got in our industry, the construction industry, is too fragmented. So I'm sure there are lots of leaders, and I think that is the problem. There's lots and lots and lots of leaders. And trying to get all those leaders together, lots of other industries have concentrations of businesses. You know, and with those concentration of industries, you can readily identify the leaders. You can't do that in construction. We're too fragmented. But I have to say, one of the reasons why we're here today, I think what we are seeing within the construction is where we see the leadership coming from is from constructing excellence. And one of the things we see with constructing excellence is working with other leaders in our industry to drive change. They say it succinctly, constructing excellence, words into action. Construction excellence are good at getting things done, and they work with, as a leadership body, with all of us in the construction industry to get things done, to drive change in the construction sector. And that's one of the reasons why we work with constructing excellence. So through the work of constructing excellence, we're starting to see change. We're starting to see a lot of improvement in productivity and improvement in outcomes because of the work construction excellence do. The important thing about constructing excellence is that they're not just trying to, as a leadership organisation, not just trying to create followers. The best leaders create other leaders. And I'm not sure whether you've seen the TED Talks video. There's a great TED Talks video, How to Start a Movement. I'm not going to show the video now because we haven't got time. If you get on YouTube, have a look at How to Start a Movement. The key message there, when you see that, it's a fantastic video, just 5-10 minutes long. It demonstrates that as a leader, what we really need is not leaders creating followers, but leaders inspiring other leaders. And that's one of the things that Construction Excellence does, and that's why we work with them. You've heard a little bit about Constructing Excellence today, and I'm not here to do a selling job for Construction Excellence. What I'm trying to do is put it into context in terms of leadership, that because we are a fragmented organisation, if we try to do things individually, we won't get. Lots of us leaders in the business, if we all try to do things individually as leaders, we won't get anywhere. We work with Constructing Excellence. We'll start to make an impact, and that's what's happening. Andrew's talked about thought leadership groups. There's 11 thought leadership groups within Constructing Excellence. You won't be able to read all the titles here, but you'll be able to get on the website and see it. What we do as LHC, we're involved in 3 of those thought leadership groups: collaborative working, off-site, and of course procurement. And we find then in working with those groups that we are working with like-minded organisations that want to drive change and that want to make things better in our industry. And we find then that when we're working with the leadership groups, working with other organisations, working with industry through Constructing Excellence, that helps us to deliver our mission, which is to deliver better buildings and homes that enhance local communities. And we do that through procurement with social landlords. So that's the sort of leadership background. What I really want to talk about now is how we take that leadership environment and actually apply it to homes to deliver new homes. What we are doing now as an industry to change the way we're delivering new homes, because it's happening in the Southwest, it's happening throughout the Southwest. Homes is one of the biggest challenges. You've heard quite a lot about that today. And the key challenge we've got in the housing market is diversifying the housing supply market. What you've already heard today is we're building about 200,000 homes now in Great Britain. We need to raise that to 300,000. The housing white paper that came out last year, fixing the broken housing market, recognised this for the first time, and recognised that the majority of housing in this country is provided by the major PLCs, and it doesn't matter how much effort we put into the major PLCs, we will not hit our housing targets through the major PLC model. The major PLCs follow the same business model. It tends to be housing for private sale, which is developed to maximise shareholder value. Not a problem with that. It's a business model. They deliver good housing and it meets a need. But the major PLC's business model does not allow them to crank up output just because we need it in the social housing sector. So what the government recognised, and it's interesting that you've just heard the Mayor of Bristol say it, that we need every source of supply to be active. And what the government identified 6 elements of what they called the wider housing supply. They said if we're going to hit 300,000 homes, we've got to get social landlords really back into driving up their supply. We need to get SMEs engaged. We need to get new contractors involved. Of course, off-site construction you've heard a bit about today, custom buildings and institutional investors. And what we do then with LHC and the rest of the industry is work with those broader groups to try to change the housing delivery model. At LHC, we don't tend to deal with institutional investors. That tends to be private rented sector, and you'll be familiar with L&G Homes and some of the big pension organisations putting money into housing for private rented sector. We don't tend to deal very much with that, so can't comment too much on that. We get involved in custom build to some extent. There was an issue about somebody raised the idea about community land trust. We get involved in community land trust with some of the social landlords in the southwest, but only on the periphery. But that whole custom build arena is really growing, going from 7% of housing supply to 20% of housing supply through custom building. Community land trust got a big part to play there. What we do at LHC, representing social landlords, working with social landlords through the whole of the country, is work with them on looking to change their processes to make more use of off-site construction, to engage more with SMEs, and to look at new capacity through new contractors. And what the government really means by new contractors here is contractors that aren't major PLCs. And I have to say, in the southwest, the dominance of major PLCs is less in the southwest than it is in other areas. But there's still social landlords are worried about capacity in the southwest. There's no doubt about that. So when we're doing our work with social landlords and trying to change the way they look at housing, we then align ourselves again with constructing excellence. You've heard again Emma mentioned this morning the mission of constructing excellence: positively disrupt the industry delivery processes to transform performance. So if we're going to diversify the housing supply market to transform performance, we have to positively disrupt the housing delivery process. Now that's a big risk, particularly for social landlords. That's a big risk. And again, there was a comment this morning about client-led development. The only way we're going to do this is for it to be client-led. We as contractors in the supply market, you can do your own changing. You can push as hard as you like. If the clients are not ready to accept new ways of working, you're going to have a difficulty. So our work at LHC with Constructing Excellence and the rest of the industry down here in the southwest is working with clients to look at their processes, and there is an onus on clients to embrace their leadership responsibilities to positively disrupt the housing delivery organisation in their own the housing delivery process in their own organisations. So we come back to the Egan report. 20 years ago, saying we're asking industry and government to join with major clients to change the way that we build. And that's what we do with Constructing Excellence. Through the industry, we work with Constructing Excellence membership as a leadership body, working with social landlords to change the way we build. So it's really important then to understand, what we need to do is understand how clients work, understand their existing processes, understand the challenges they've got, and work with them to redesign their processes. Now, this can, as clients, social landlords, their needs can differ throughout the country. So there's a regional leadership element to this as well. Now, you're not going to be able to read all of this, but what you get the idea here is that Construction Excellence do a great job down in the southwest, but they work with they work as industry throughout the UK, and they have regional leadership activities, leadership bodies in each of those regions. And as LHC, we're the same. We work regionally, and we align then with Constructing Excellence throughout the UK to deliver improvements, and none more so than in the southwest. As LHC Southwest working with Andrew, as he said, over the last few years. Now, the key thing about regional leadership is recognising the different impacts, the different environmental factors in each of the regions. And in the southwest, we would go further than that in the southwest, because not only do we recognise that there is a certain set of characteristics for social landlords in the southwest, but as you've heard quite a bit this morning, that can differ from the north of the region to the south of the region. Very, very different. So the way we tend to look at the southwest, split it into the 4 areas, which is the European nuts codes, and try to understand the client's perspectives in each of those areas, because they'll be slightly different. In the southwest, there's 77 social landlords, 15 local authorities, 62 housing associations. They own about 340,000 stock between them. They're delivering about 5,000 homes at the moment. But that is going to massively explode, the 5,000 homes over the next few years. You just have to take Cornwall have not built there are people from Cornwall Council here today. Cornwall haven't built a home for years. They've now got a plan to build 900 over the next 3 years. We need to build 15,000 homes in Cornwall over the next 3 years. So we're going to have a massive ramp up, or there's a massive demand, but the challenge for us as leaders is make sure that we can, from the supply side, we can work together to make sure that we meet that demand. That's what's going to be the challenge in our sector. It's not that the demand isn't there. People talk about the supply and demand in the housing sector. The demand is there. It's up to us as an industry to work together to meet that demand. Now, clearly, all of these housing associations, individually, 70 social landlords, 77 of them, have their own challenges when they're trying to boost housing. Well, again, we've heard a lot about that today. Land, planning, funding, materials, and, of course, skills. We heard a lot about skills. So we need to disrupt the process to make sure that we can respond to those challenges. But the trouble is, as soon as we start disrupting the process, brings a lot of uncertainty and risk. And of course, what we've got here now then, if we're disrupting processes means introducing risk. And when we're doing that with local authorities, you deal with local authorities, they are the most risk-averse organisations you ever do. So we're trying to introduce risky situations to local authorities that don't like risk. And the best way to deal with uncertainty and risk is to share it. You don't need to see those numbers. It's to share it. And we've heard a lot about collaboration now. So we've got 77 social landlords thinking about how they need to change their processes to deliver the housing that we need. 77 thinking individually. As an industry, what we need to do is to get those 77 or the like-minded clients thinking collectively about how they're going to solve the housing crisis, and in that respect, then share that learning and share that risk, and we'll start to see some progress. And that's why I think Constructing Excellence is making progress, because, as you've heard, everything they do is collaboratively, and that's what clients need. Clients need help to change their processes. They need help with leadership. So what we do as an industry, then, what LHC are doing with the rest of the industry in the Southwest, is trying to collaborate with like-minded clients. And as I mentioned, there's two ways of doing that. The two ways we do that now, we do it on a pan-regional basis, looking at those 77 social landlords, trying to talk to each of them to identify the like-minded ones that want to work together, want to embrace their leadership responsibilities, want to drive change. We get them talking to each other, both on a pan-regional basis, but also, as you've seen with Constructing Excellence with their clubs, there's different nuances throughout the Southwest. So we're doing a bit of work with the whole of the region at the moment, but we're also doing a bit of work around the Dorset area with a group of social landlords that have got specific needs there. And the way we work as a framework provider, and we're not, this is not unique to LHC as a framework provider. What we do as LHC, we provide a procurement framework that meets the needs of that collaborative group. So we, as a framework provider, we engage with social landlords, try to identify common needs, try to identify shared visions between those social landlords, who will then get together collaboratively. We then work with them in establishing a framework by engaging with the market and appointing a group of consultants and contractors that want to work with that collaborative group. We've got a couple of tenders out at the moment, and there's a few familiar faces in the audience that are working with us to do this. The important thing from a procurement point of view, this is as a procurement exercise, putting a framework together is only half the story. And a lot of the times, procurement is about compliance with ODU regulations. That's only half the story. The important thing for continuous improvement is to make sure what we've got is an alliance. We've got somebody bringing all of that energy together, facilitating change for continuous improvement. That's the bit that's missing in procurement, and that's what we're trying to bring to the table. And the way we do that, the way we do it at LHC, is through a new contract, through a framework alliance contract. Andrew mentioned this morning about the need for new contracts. Was very passionate about that. What we're doing is working with industry and working with clients in the Southwest to introduce a framework alliance contract. Some of your clients are already working with this. Some of you as contractors are already on frameworks with framework alliance contracts. It's been developed by the construction law faculty at King's College. It's been implemented throughout the UK. I know Trowers and Hamleys have been involved with some of the clients in the Southwest in terms of framework alliance contracts. And the key thing, as Andrew sort of hinted at this morning, is that this is a framework alliance contract that facilitates collaboration. So there's now tools in place that allows us to drive change through the contract. So the framework alliance contract, it allows collaboration between the three partners, the group of clients as a collaborative group, the appointed contractors and consultants as a network group of appointed companies to the framework, and then the alliance, LHC as an alliance manager. Now, one of the big things about the framework alliance contract, for you as a group of particularly those contractors and those suppliers amongst you, if you're being asked to change by your clients, you have to take that on board. You have to think very, very seriously if a single client is asking you to change. If you're getting asked by 77 different social landlords to change to meet their requirements, you might respond differently. The idea about the Framework Alliance contract is that it identifies an aggregated framework program. So if suddenly you've got 10 clients all asking you to change with a common vision, and an aggregated pipeline, there's more of an incentive for you to do that. So what the Framework Alliance contract allows for is identification of a framework program to add some critical mass, and then it also allows continuous improvement. So once you're on the framework, the job isn't done there. You get onto the framework, you work with your clients, and then what we do throughout the whole term of that framework, which is normally 4 years, is we work from project to project. We share the learning from project to project to introduce continuous improvement in terms of efficiency, in terms of quality and community benefit, which you've heard quite a lot about today. So specifically in the Southwest, when we've been talking to social landlords in the Southwest about housing, and again, these are when we talk about continuous improvement, about the housing frameworks, these are the items that get raised. This is what we're building in to the Framework Alliance contract. Again, I don't need to go. You can see yourself the list there. You've heard a lot about each of them today. So these are the issues that are affecting Southwest social landlords. They're affecting every single one. It's 77 social landlords. If we can pull them all together, we can tackle these issues as a group. So finally then, the way this works in practice, what LHC does, it produces the framework with two frameworks actually for social landlords at the moment. One is off-site housing, allows social landlords to access off-site housing solutions either through turnkey or modular or panel systems. But also there's a tender. Some of you are completing the tender at the moment for house building, traditional house building. And what we've got then in the Southwest, we've got an opportunity to blend these solutions using contractors and consultants that can tap into the off-site housing framework to deliver a blended solution. We're not the only ones that do that. There's some other good frameworks in the Southwest. There's the Southern Construction Framework. Some of you have been on. There's the Homes for England Delivery Partners Panel. So there are other frameworks as well. I think what we're doing, getting closer to the social landlords to try and deliver what they need. You'll be familiar with. If you're not familiar with LHC, get onto the website, lhc.gov.uk. Penny, a lot of you here know Penny, talk to Penny. If you're interested, from either side, as a supplier or as a client, get in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.